Welcome to Night Owl, where night becomes story. Tonight, we step into another world. One where the sky rumbles with divine gossip, rivers carry secrets, and every mountain could be hiding a love affair, a betrayal, or a god in disguise. You're standing beneath a velvet sky on a lonely slope, stars blinking above like gossiping eyes. There's a crisp breeze at your back, and before you, a path climbs toward misty peaks. Mount Olympus, realm of the immortals. You're not sure who invited you, but the door's open and someone's left out honey cakes. Just be warned, you probably won't survive this. Between the transformations, the curses, and the divine drama, mortals tend to become cautionary tales. But don't worry, you're just here to drift, not to duel with harpies. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from too. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first few steps into Olympus and realise this place doesn't feel quite real. The stones underfoot shimmer slightly. The air smells faintly of pine, nectar, and what you suspect is dramatic tension. There are no guards, no thunderbolts thrown your way, and no application forms to enter. Just a path, winding upward through soft clouds that brush your ankles. Somewhere up ahead, voices argue in meter. The gods of Olympus are not what you expected. There's no choir of angels, no silent robed figures dispensing justice. Instead, it's a bit more like an overfunded family reunion crossed with an elite theatre troupe, all of whom are deeply insecure and excessively powerful. You round a bend and there they are, lounging in marble halls that shift like dreams. Gold-brushed colonnades hold up ceilings painted with stars. There's Dionysus pouring wine into a fountain that definitely shouldn't be wine. Apollo tunes his lyre, squinting like he's trying to one-up the sun. Artemis practices archery on a moving cloud shaped like a stag. And there, in the centre of it all, sits Zeus, thunderbolt in one hand, a fig in the other. This isn't a pantheon. It's an eternal improv troupe with boundary issues. Zeus notices you, of course. He always does. You expect a roar of thunder, or maybe a lecture on fate and sacrifice. But instead, he just raises an eyebrow, mutters something about another dreamer, and goes back to micromanaging a lightning storm in Crete. Historians still argue whether belief in these gods was literal or symbolic for most ancient Greeks. Were these beings worshipped as omnipotent powers, or were they larger-than-life reflections of very human desires, flaws, and fears? Either way, they got the job done. Farmers prayed for Demeter's favour in harvest. Sailors whispered to Poseidon before they set out. Lovers called on Aphrodite, hoping to avoid turning into swans, or trees, or worse. Back on Olympus, you begin to notice how much like a family these gods behave. Not a peaceful, well-adjusted one, no. This is more like the group chat you muted long ago. Rivalries simmer, secret affairs buzz under every conversation, passive-aggressive glances fly like arrows. Hera, queen of the gods and goddess of marriage, sips her ambrosia with a level of judgment that could shatter glass. She watches Zeus closely, too closely. You suddenly recall that many of Zeus's epic quests began as weekend flings disguised as swans, bulls, or golden showers. Yes, literally rain made of gold. Hera remembers them all. The funny part? Despite their godhood, none of them ever really learned to communicate. Instead of couples therapy, they invented punishment. Instead of conflict resolution, they invented transformation. You feel like you're inside an eternal soap opera directed by a particularly creative poet with no filter. But don't be fooled by the pettiness. Each god ruled more than just a personality flaw. They embodied entire domains of life, real, chaotic, everyday life. Athena represented wisdom, but also war strategy and crafts. Hermes was a trickster, yes, but also the protector of travellers and thieves alike. Their myths weren't just bedtime stories, they were maps for survival. Take Dionysus, lounging now in a hammock strung between two columns. He's got grapes tucked behind his ear and a laugh like someone who knows where all the rules are buried. You may think of him as just the god of wine, but he's so much stranger than that. He represents ecstasy, madness, transformation, everything that tears down your sense of self so something new can bloom. A lesser-known fact, Dionysus was the last to join the Olympians, and some sources say he wasn't even Greek in origin. He likely came from Thrace or somewhere farther east, slipping into the pantheon through sheer cultural popularity. Scholars still debate whether his cult was a joyful rebellion or a spiritual release valve for a deeply ordered society. You notice the mortals scattered around Olympus too. Heroes mid-quest, lost poets, musicians tuning out the thunder. They all look equally confused to be here. No one's sure if they're honoured guests, playthings or props in someone else's legend. The myths may be old, but they're never really gone. You see it in the way the gods lounge and bicker, still relevant, still echoing. Every time you feel an impossible choice, a forbidden love, or a craving to hurl your phone into the sea and live as a goat herder, you're tapping into something ancient, something myth-sized. A breeze stirs. Somewhere in the distance, a lyre note hangs like dew. You keep walking, your sandals leaving no mark on the shining path. You've only just arrived, and already the mountain feels familiar. Not because you've been here before, but because you've lived pieces of these myths without knowing it. And the gods, well, they're watching. The first thing you notice about Zeus, aside from the six-pack abs and sky-cracking ego, is that he absolutely hates being ignored. He's not just the god of thunder, he's the god of reminders. Every lightning bolt, a little ping. Every thunderclap, a divine notification. Remember who's in charge. But tonight he's lounging. For now. You stand quietly near the edge of a reflecting pool that ripples not with water, but with memories. Scenes from mortal lives below. Births, betrayals, that one guy in Athens who still owes someone a goat. The pool shifts constantly, the past swirling with possibility, and Zeus peers into it like someone watching his favourite chaotic reality show. You'd think the king of gods would be stable, secure, zen. He's immortal after all. But oh no, Zeus is deeply insecure, always trying to outwit fate, outmaneuver prophecy, and outparent a horde of chaotic demigods, each with a complicated backstory, multiple mothers, and a dangerous tendency to challenge their dad in heroic competitions. Classic. You follow him through a shifting hallway, lined with columns made of thunderclouds, each one echoing with the muffled arguments of ages past. He's grumbling to himself, something about ambrosia taxes and Poseidon's stupid trident. Occasionally, he throws side-eye toward a statue of Kronos, his dad, the former sky tyrant who swallowed most of his children whole. That's not metaphor, Kronos literally ate his kids. Zeus only escaped because his mother, Rhea, had the sense to feed Kronos a rock wrapped in a baby blanket. When Zeus grew up, he returned the favour with a full-blown Olympian coup, forcing Kronos to barf up his siblings. Family therapy? Never heard of it. Historians still argue whether this succession myth of son overthrowing father was a reflection of real political shifts in early Greek societies. Some say it mirrored transitions from matriarchal, earth-worshipping cultures to patriarchal sky deity religions. Others think it's just what happens when storytellers drink too much and start competing. Whatever the origin, Zeus seized power, but he never really stopped looking over his shoulder. You wander deeper into Olympus and stumble upon a gallery of divine parenting mishaps. There's Hephaestus, god of fire and metalwork, famously thrown off a mountain by his own mother, Hera, because he wasn't pretty enough. There's Ares, the war god with more brawn than brains, who spends most of his time getting dunked on by Athena. And there's Athena herself, goddess of wisdom, strategy, and owls, who literally burst from Zeus's forehead, fully grown, wearing armour. We'll get to her soon. The mood shifts when you reach a courtyard humming with tension. A row of nymphs scurries by, whispering again. Zeus, you learn quickly, has a particular pattern. He falls in love. Wild, inconvenient, apocalyptic love. With mortals. He shapeshifts, sneaks, bribes, or storms his way into their lives, and consequences be damned. There was the time he turned into a bull to seduce Europa, carrying her off across the sea. Or the time he became a golden shower. Yes, again, literally golden rain, to reach Danae in her bronze prison. His relationships read like a dream logic soap opera, strange, symbolic, and destined to produce heroes with abandonment issues. You overhear the gods talking, not in words exactly, but in layered emotion, like warmth and weight in the air. You pick up a thread of conversation between Hera and Iris, the rainbow messenger goddess. She's mortal. It won't last, Hera mutters, clearly referring to yet another of Zeus's flings. Neither do the kingdoms they build, Iris replies, shifting the wind like an exhale. There's a fringe belief, not widely accepted, but you hear it whispered in sleepy corners of academia, that Zeus's many mortal affairs symbolise the spread of divine blood into humanity, legitimising kings and empires. Myth as political branding. I descend from Zeus was the ancient version of I went to Oxford. And Hera? She was left to keep the cosmic order intact while playing celestial whack-a-mole with Zeus's mischief. She's often painted as the jealous wife, but that's selling her short. Hera was patron of marriage, protector of women, goddess of legacy and law. And unlike Zeus, she wasn't out here turning into swans. She was handling it. You watch her now as she adjusts the stars in a constellation, a task only the truly patient are allowed to do. There's a quiet grace in how she works, even when her eyes flash with stormlight. You begin to understand, Olympus isn't just a realm of divine power, it's a mirror. The gods are not perfect ideals, they're elevated chaos. They reflect humanity in exaggerated detail. Our tempers, our love, our hungers, our dreams. They make mistakes, hold grudges, and compete like toddlers with weather control. But their stories endure because they're relatable in all their ridiculousness. Down below, mortals burn offerings, hoping to catch divine favour. But up here, the gods bicker over ambrosia recipes, and whose temple smells like wet goat. It's comforting in a weird way. You settle onto a marble bench shaped like a griffin. A breeze carries the scent of olives and something like sandalwood. A harp note drifts from the horizon, distant and echoing. You realise that being here isn't about worship. It's about watching the old stories swirl around you, recognising pieces of yourself in them. The ambition, the pride, the fear of being forgotten. Zeus storms past again, this time muttering about "who moved my eagle." You stifle a laugh. Maybe not all of him is storm and spectacle, maybe part of him is just tired. And beneath it all, a hum persists. You feel it in your bones. These myths may be old, tangled, messy, but they still live, not just in books, but in the quiet places your mind drifts to when the world slows down. And tonight, that's exactly where you are. You're not entirely sure how you ended up walking behind a man whose head is glowing faintly, but that's Olympus for you. Things shift quickly here. One moment you're lounging near a celestial wine fountain, and the next, you're witnessing a birth so bizarre it should really come with a safety warning and a comedy jingle. Zeus groans dramatically, clutching his forehead like someone who stayed up too late arguing in the YouTube comment section. A crack of thunder rolls across the mountaintop. He doubles over, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like, "I told you I didn't need a midwife." Then, crack. His skull splits open and out leaps a fully grown goddess in gleaming armour. This is Athena. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and immediately judge the decor, the lighting and everyone's fashion choices? That's Athena's entire vibe. She surveys the realm with the cool, focused stare of someone who already knows she's the smartest one here, and isn't afraid to let you know it. She dusts herself off, adjusts her bronze breastplate, and promptly asks where the library is. The origin of this particular myth has baffled scholars for centuries. A goddess born from the head of her father, it's weird, it's symbolic, it's incredibly metal. Some interpret it as a metaphor for the intellectual legacy passed from one generation to another. Others suggest it was propaganda, framing Athena as Zeus's favourite, a daughter born without a mother, thereby avoiding any threat to his divine masculinity. Historians still argue whether this was a political move by Athens itself to align the city's identity with the goddess's prestige. Athena isn't like the others. While Aphrodite might lounge and Ares might flex, Athena works. She's the goddess of wisdom, but also of strategy, justice, crafts, and civilization. If Olympus had spreadsheets, she'd colour-code them. If it had Wi-Fi, she'd fix it before you even realised it was down. You follow her through her personal sanctuary, an olive grove filled with owls, scrolls and armour stands. Unlike the other gods, whose temples often drip with drama and luxury, Athena's realm feels like a workshop fused with a lecture hall. There's a loom in the corner mid-weave. An old bronze shield leans against a desk, etched with notes. You swear one of the scrolls mutters when you pass it. Athena glances your way. "You look lost," she says, then not unkindly. "Let's fix that." She guides you through stories, weaving them together like threads in a tapestry. You learn about her battle with Poseidon to become the patron of Athens, while he smashed the ground with his trident to summon a saltwater spring. Very dramatic. Athena quietly planted the first olive tree, symbolizing peace, prosperity, and more importantly, something actually useful. The city picked her, and Poseidon sulked for centuries. You also hear about the time she turned Arachne into a spider. Not out of cruelty exactly, but because Arachne, a mortal weaver, dared to challenge her to a weaving contest. And won. Athena didn't handle it well. She tore the tapestry, turned the girl into an 8-legged warning sign, and quietly never entered another craft fair again. There's a lesson buried in that story, several in fact, about pride, about talent, about what happens when mortals rise too high, and also maybe don't trash talk a goddess's embroidery. A lesser-known tidbit? Athena wasn't always a Greek goddess. Her earliest roots may go back to the Mycenaean period, or even earlier. Her name appears in Linear B tablets long before the classical myths. Some scholars believe she may have evolved from an older war or mother goddess, eventually reshaped by Athens' political ambition. The city made her their symbol, their champion, their brand, and Athena, ever the strategist, accepted. Back in her grove, you sit on a stone bench beneath a tree that's definitely older than time. The leaves shimmer slightly. Athena paces nearby, muttering to herself about logic and balance, occasionally correcting invisible equations in the air. You get the sense she doesn't need praise like the others. She wants impact. She wants her ideas to outlast her. She's not interested in worship. She's interested in legacy. She pauses beside you, picks up a stone, and begins to sketch a labyrinth into the earth with its tip. The mind, she says softly, is the best battlefield. It's the one you carry with you. You nod slowly, not sure what else to do. There's a weight to her words, like they've already been echoed through thousands of years and are just now reaching you. Athena may be born of thunder, but her power isn't loud. It's quiet, focused, enduring. She stands, brushes off her robes, and looks toward a horizon you can't quite see. The others won't tell you everything, she says. They enjoy the noise too much. But you'll learn. The stories always teach, if you're still long enough to listen. You glance back at the scrolls. One of them has written your name in ink that fades as you stare. You stand up to leave. Athena gives you a final nod, and suddenly you're no longer in the grove. Olympus has shifted again, and your path continues. Behind you, the goddess returns to her scrolls, her loom, and the quiet rhythm of a mind, always working. You barely have time to blink before the clouds around you swirl, the marble underfoot reshapes itself into cobblestone, and suddenly you're no longer among olive trees and scholarly quiet. You're in motion, fast motion. Wind whooshes past your ears. The scent of fresh leather, citrus, and divine mischief floods your senses. A flash of movement darts by. Was that a baby, wearing winged sandals? Yes it was. Meet Hermes, the god of travellers, tricksters, merchants, pickpockets, lost souls, and anyone who has ever said, "Trust me, I know a shortcut." He is only a few hours old, by the way. You follow the trail, bent grass, glinting footprints, and confused livestock, down a sloping hill, into the world below Olympus. It's dawn on the mortal plains, and baby Hermes is already up to no good. He's stolen Apollo's cattle, not a metaphor, actual divine cows swiped under the nose of the god of order, music, and sunlight. And he's left no ordinary trail behind. He's walking them backwards to confuse the prince. He invented the reverse getaway on day one, the audacity. This moment, Hermes' debut as a divine rascal, is one of those myths that reads more like a sitcom pilot than ancient scripture. Here's a newborn god who's barely out of the swaddle and already committing grand theft livestock. When Apollo eventually tracks him down, furious, harp in hand, Hermes diffuses the tension by inventing the lyre from a turtle shell. Here, bro, made you a thing, let's call it even. Historians still debate whether Hermes' early myths represent a distinct phase of religious evolution. Some argue he was once a boundary god, guardian of thresholds and doorways, before being absorbed into the Olympian family. Others suggest his tales serve to explain the unpredictable nature of travel and commerce in a world where the road could bring fortune or ruin. You wander into Hermes' sanctuary, which is, unsurprisingly, a mess. There are scrolls, wings, maps, trade tokens, lyres, gym sandals, and something that might be a half-eaten apple from Eden. Wrong myth, wrong pantheon, but hey, he gets around. The entire place hums with movement. Even the shadows seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them. Hermes materializes beside you, teenage now, tall and sly-eyed. His staff, the caduceus, twin snakes entwined around a rod, rests lightly in his hand. It pulses with energy, a symbol that's travelled through time all the way to modern medicine. You nod toward it. He smirks. Not bad for a baby, huh? There's something about him that puts you at ease, even while you instinctively check if your wallet's still there. He gestures, and you follow him onto a winding path that seems to phase in and out of reality. One moment you're in ancient Corinth. The next, you're in a Cretan port town watching spice merchants argue. Then a lonely Roman road dotted with milestones and ghost stories. Through it all, Hermes is there, smiling, guiding, stealing occasionally, but always returning what he takes, eventually. Along the way, he tells you things the other gods wouldn't. About the underworld, how he's the only Olympian who can come and go without consequence. He ferries souls there gently, often whispering to them as they cross the threshold between breath and silence. Not all his work is mischief, some of it is mercy. You pass a quiet stone way marker with ancient letters etched deep into it. To cross is to change. A fringe belief suggests Hermes wasn't just a messenger but a bridge between opposites. Mortal and divine, sacred and profane, beginning and end. In him, contradictions walk hand in hand. He's a trickster with a conscience, a thief with a code. You arrive at a road market built from mist and memory. Stalls bustle without sound. A merchant sells memories of dreams in little glass bottles. Another offers half-truths freshly spun. Hermes leans in and asks if you want to know your fate. You shake your head. Smart, he says. Even I don't peek at that too often. He pauses at a corner and points to a milestone where countless sandals have scuffed the stone. This is where heroes pass through, he says, the ones who make it into stories. You recognise the names etched faintly into the marble. Odysseus, Perseus, Heracles, Orpheus. Their paths crossed his briefly at some point in their tangled mythic lives. Hermes doesn't boast. He doesn't need to. He was there, always moving, always knowing a little more than he should. He walks you back to Olympus, which, by now, feels like a rotating stage. The sky deepens into rose gold. You feel something shift in the air, a tug, a warning. Hermes notices. They'll start getting serious soon, he says. Enjoy the lightness while you can. You ask what he means, but he just tosses a wink over his shoulder and vanishes into the wind, leaving only a single feather behind. You pick it up. It hums with potential. And then, as quickly as he arrived, he's gone. The scent hits you before the scene does. Roses, pomegranates, something sugary and faintly dangerous like perfume left on the love letter that should never have been opened. You follow it round a marble curve and suddenly, everything softens. The light glows golden, the clouds blush pink, and there she is. Aphrodite. She doesn't walk, she glides. Her skin glows like morning dew. Her hair, long and impossibly wavy, seems to float on a breeze that isn't touching anything else. Even the doves pause mid-flutter to admire her. It's unsettling, actually. Like watching gravity take a break out of sheer respect. She's standing in front of a mirror made from still water, adjusting a strand of gold thread in her hair. You try not to stare, but she notices anyway. Everyone stares, she says, not unkindly. That's kind of the point. Aphrodite is the goddess of love, beauty, passion, and depending on the mood, either romantic bliss or complete social collapse. You've heard the stories, but standing this close, you realise she's more than just beautiful. She's terrifyingly beautiful, the kind of beauty that breaks kingdoms, which, to be fair, she has done. You ask her about the apple. She rolls her eyes as if to say, "That again? Ah yes, the judgment of Paris, the mythological beauty contest that may be the root cause of one of history's most famous wars. A mortal prince, 3 goddesses, Aphrodite, Hera and Athena, all fighting over who deserved a golden apple inscribed, 'To the fairest.' Paris, a Trojan shepherd who'd clearly never heard the phrase 'stay out of it,' chose Aphrodite. She'd promised him the love of the most beautiful mortal woman, Helen of Sparta, which would have been great, except Helen was married to a very important Spartan king. So, whoops. Historians still argue whether this story was meant to explain the real political origins of the Trojan War, or simply function as an ancient careful what you wish for parable. What's clear is that Aphrodite's promise sparked a chain reaction that echoed through every corner of Greek storytelling. Sieges, epics, revenge cycles, wooden horses. But here, now, she seems less like a divine instigator, and more like someone who's deeply, impossibly bored. She waves a hand and the air shimmers. Suddenly, you're not in Olympus anymore. but on a beach where Aphrodite is said to have first emerged from the sea foam. Not born exactly, formed from the foam of the sea after Uranus was, well, let's just say dismembered and tossed into the waves. You look uneasy, she smirks. Don't worry, I missed that part. I arrived after the splash. Aphrodite wasn't always a daughter of Zeus. In some traditions, she's older than any Olympian. Something primal, older than the sky gods, a force of attraction itself, not just romance, but the gravitational pull between things, people, places, even planets. She walks barefoot across the water, each step blooming into lotus petals. Love is not kind, she says, more to the waves than to you. It pulls, it burns, it makes mortals mad, and gods worse. You think of all her lovers, Ares, the war god, her most infamous pairing, Hephaestus, her husband in name only, the smith god who once caught her cheating in a golden net. Then there were mortals, Anchises, Adonis, the latter mourned so deeply he was granted a rebirth every spring. Each story tangled, each ending beautiful or brutal or both. You ask if she regrets any of it. She laughs, soft, melodious but tired. Regret? She echoes. No, I only regret that they thought love was soft, that it didn't come with claws. Aphrodite snaps her fingers, and the scene changes again. You're surrounded by statues now, lovers locked in marble embraces, couples parted mid-kiss, a single figure alone, holding a rose that seems to wilt at your glance. She doesn't speak. She lets the images settle around you like mist. You wonder, is love divine, or just another trick? She seems to like the question, but doesn't answer. A fringe myth, less often told, suggests that Aphrodite once wept so deeply for a mortal who died in her arms that the sea itself turned red with her grief. Some say that's how coral got its colour. She touches your hand, just a brush, and 1,000 emotions rush through you. Longing, joy, heartbreak, nostalgia for something that hasn't even happened yet. Then, as if deciding that's enough for one dream, she smiles and turns away. Doves lift into the air. Roses scatter underfoot. The marble beneath your sandals ripples like warm silk. And she's gone. You're left alone in the gallery, breathless, wondering whether any of it was real, or if it was just the effect of being near a goddess who's been confusing mortals for centuries. Love, after all, rarely leaves you the same.
You've barely caught your breath from the rose-scented fog of Aphrodite's realm when the air around you thickens, dense, darker, heavy with history. The clouds roll inward, the colours mute, and for the first time on Olympus, it feels like you're being watched. But not by gods, by stories. You're no longer standing on shimmering marble or flower-strewn paths. Now it's stone, cold, cracked and streaked with wine-dark stains. You're in Thebes, a city of kings, queens, riddles, curses and tragedy. So much tragedy it could qualify as a competitive sport. You walk through a courtyard chiselled with names that sound like fate whispered them. Oedipus, Antigone, Jocasta, Creon, each one echoing off the ancient walls like a half-remembered warning. They don't call this the most cursed family in Greek myth for nothing. The gods may rule Olympus, but down here, mortals carry the burden of their divine chaos, and nowhere is that clearer than in Thebes. A gust of dry wind pushes open a temple door and you're swept inside. Shadows flicker on the walls like puppets in a tragedy, figures acting out the same doomed scenes over and over. A man solves a riddle, marries a queen, discovers she's his mother. A daughter buries a brother and defies a king. A blind prophet shakes his head for the 100th time. You sit quietly on a cracked stone pew. Across from you, the shadow of Oedipus speaks, not in words, but in heavy, silent motion. His story is the mythological equivalent of a car alarm that won't turn off. You know what's coming. You know he's walking toward ruin with the confidence of someone who just aced a quiz. But still, he keeps going. It starts with a prophecy. It always does. Oedipus would kill his father and marry his mother. A fresh take on Don't Shoot the Messenger. His parents, Inglias and Queen Jocasta, naturally freaked out and abandoned baby Oedipus on a mountainside. That'll stop fate, right? Classic ancient parenting move. But fate is clingy. Oedipus grows up elsewhere, unaware of his identity, and, long story short, ends up doing exactly what the prophecy foretold. He kills a man at a crossroads during a scuffle, marries a widowed queen in Thebes, lives happily for a time,
until, slowly, painfully, the truth unravels. That man at the crossroads? His dad. The queen? His mum. Yikes. When the truth is finally revealed, Jocasta takes her own life. Oedipus blinds himself with the pins from her dress. It's poetic. It's horrifying. And it's oddly quiet in the room after you relive it. Even the shadows seem still. Historians still argue whether Oedipus's tale was a warning against hubris or a reflection on how impossible it is to escape fate. Some even suggest it served as commentary on the dangers of over-reliance on logic, the idea that you can reason your way out of destiny, only to reason yourself straight into it. But the tragedy doesn't stop with him. It never stops in Thebes. You pass through a corridor where Antigone waits, quiet and proud. She's Oedipus's daughter, but also his sister. Don't think too hard about it, it's myth math. She's facing off with Creon, her uncle, over the burial of her brother Polynices, who was branded a traitor. Creon forbids the burial. Antigone defies him, choosing family and the laws of the gods over the laws of men. Her reward? A stone tomb and a slow, sad end. There's something quietly revolutionary about her. She's not a demigod, not a queen, not a warrior, just a girl with a spine of marble and a refusal to accept injustice, even when it comes wrapped in royal robes. You walk among more shadows now, each one echoing a lesson wrapped in pain. The stories of Thebes are not about victory, they're about survival, about carrying curses like heirlooms, about choosing defiance over despair, even when the cost is your name, your freedom, or your life. A lesser-known version of the myth says Antigone didn't die in the tomb, that she was rescued quietly by a sympathetic guard who couldn't watch someone so brave be buried alive. It's not the mainstream version, but you like to believe it. As you wander deeper into Thebes, the city seems to fold in on itself, a labyrinth of grief. You hear music, plaintive, minor key, a lyre being plucked somewhere near a broken gate. You turn a corner and find yourself back in time again. This time watching a queen named Niobe boast of her many children, taunting Leto, mother of Apollo and Artemis. Bad move. The twins kill Niobe's children in retaliation. Some myths say 6, others say 14. Either way, it's too many. Niobe flees to a mountaintop weeping. Eventually the gods turn her into a stone, and her tears become a spring. She's still there, they say, weeping eternally. This is Thebes. Here, pride meets punishment, love meets loss, and even the most righteous choices can lead to ruin. It's myth at its darkest and most human, where fate is a force not of guidance but of pressure, pushing down, reshaping people into symbols. You sit by that spring now, running your fingers through its cold, endless water. The mountain around you sighs with stories, and you feel, just faintly, the sense that you're not alone. That these characters aren't just names in old poems, but echoes, still vibrating through time, through us. A voice stirs behind you, soft, feminine, firm. There's no clean ending here, it says. No triumphant return. You turn, it's Antigone. Or perhaps just her memory. Her eyes are clear but not warm. She isn't here to comfort you. She's here to remind you. Some stories don't end, she says. They loop, they warn, they wait. You nod, unsure what else to do. She fades like mist pulled back by the wind. You stand once more in the centre of Thebes. The ghosts have quieted. The air is heavy but calm, and somewhere far above, Olympus waits. You begin your climb again. The air thins as you climb again, leaving behind the solemn shadows of Thebes. With every step, the stories shift. The earth grows redder, the skies brighter. There's a sharpness in the wind now, a kind of whistling anticipation. You crest a hill, brush past a laurel tree humming with unseen energy, and there he is, Apollo. Even before you see him, you feel him, the warmth, the impossible symmetry, the presence that commands not with thunder or mischief, but with the weight of knowing. He sits on a stone ledge, tuning a golden lyre that glows faintly with each note. His fingers move so fast they blur. His eyes, golden as sunrise, flick toward you without surprise. "You're late," he says, smiling. You're not sure how one arrives late to a dreamlike tour of the gods, but something about his voice makes you feel like you probably should have tried harder to be punctual. This is Apollo, after all, god of prophecy, music, healing, plague, poetry, archery, and very complicated relationships. He's the sun, but also the shadow just behind it. As you approach, he plays a chord that ripples the clouds. The sky seems to adjust its hue slightly to match the note. You sit beside him. The stone is warm. "I hate being misunderstood," he mutters, still strumming. You blink. That's unexpected, coming from someone whose entire identity is carved into marble temples, oracle stones, and half the poetry of antiquity. "I'm not just the sun guy," he continues. "Everyone remembers the lyre, the laurel wreath, the perfect face. But do they remember what I sacrificed to hold prophecy in my mouth?" You want to ask what he means, but he's already showing you. Suddenly, you're not on a cliff with a golden god. You're standing at Delphi, ancient, sacred, whispering. The air smells of laurel smoke and warm earth. The temple is simple, almost modest if you squint past the gold offerings. At the center is the Pythia, the oracle, sitting above a fissure that leaks vapors from the deep, speaking in riddles that bend time. It's through Apollo that the oracle speaks, or so the priests say, but the truth, as always, is more layered. Some scholars argue that the Pythia's visions were chemically induced, hallucinations from natural gases seeping from beneath the temple. Others believe the trance-like state was achieved through ritual, repetition, or sheer force of belief. Historians still debate whether the power came from Apollo or from the sheer will of the women who sat over that crack in the earth, generation after generation, speaking truth to kings. You return to Apollo's side. He strums another chord. "People ask for prophecy," he says, as if knowing the future makes living easier. But it doesn't. It makes you watch. You think about Cassandra, a Trojan princess who was given the gift of foresight by Apollo, and cursed when she rejected his advances. The curse? She would see the future clearly, but no one would believe her.
A chilling punishment, and, honestly, little petty. "She broke my heart," he says, softly, but not defensively. "So I broke her voice." You pause. He meets your gaze. "It wasn't just about me. She wanted truth to warn. I wanted it to inspire. That difference matters." You get the feeling he's still not sure he was right. You ask him about his twin, Artemis. His face softens. "She doesn't need me to explain her," he says. "She'll shoot me if I try." So you ask about the laurel tree. The smile fades. "Daphne," he says, almost a whisper. You know this story. Apollo, struck by one of Eros's arrows, falls wildly in love with a nymph named Daphne, who wants absolutely nothing to do with him. He chases her, consumed. She runs, desperate. And just before he reaches her, she calls out to the river god, her father, who transforms her into a laurel tree, rooted, untouchable, safe. It's one of the most beautiful and disturbing myths in Greek lore. Desire meets resistance. Love becomes something too heavy to bear. "She didn't love me," Apollo says. "She didn't have to." He doesn't justify it, doesn't excuse it, just names it. That might be the most honest thing you've heard all night. A lesser-known version of the myth says Apollo continued to care for the laurel tree, tending its leaves, weaving its branches into crowns for poets and heroes, not out of triumph, but as an apology. It's not canon, but it's believable. You walk with him through his temple. It isn't the palace you expected, more a sanctuary of thought, walls covered in poetry, architecture tuned like an instrument, each pillar placed with mathematical care. At the centre is a single string, stretched from ceiling to floor, humming faintly. "Truth," he says, tapping it, "is vibration. You feel it, even if you don't understand it." Apollo was medicine as much as music, the god of healing, of plagues, of balance. In myth, he could cure or kill with the same breath, a protector and a punisher, light and fever, harmony and consequence. He's not warm exactly, but he is precise. You pause in front of a golden bow resting on a pedestal. Its curve gleams like the edge of sunrise. You ask if he ever misses the days of war and glory. "Not once," he says. "But I miss the silence after." You sit again as he plays one final melody. It's not triumphant, it's not grand. It's a lullaby, old and aching, with notes you feel more than hear. Something in it sounds like mourning, something else sounds like forgiveness. You don't realize you're crying until a single tear lands on the stone, and Apollo catches it in his palm like a falling note. Then he stands, slings his lyre over his back,
and walks into the sun, and once again you are alone.
The golden warmth of Apollo fades, and with it so does the sense of order you'd begun to trust. In its place a hush fall, thick, solemn and shadowed. You descend, not down a staircase or a mountain path, but into the very marrow of myth. The earth opens, not violently but patiently, like a door long kept shut. Stone walls rise on either side, carved not with decoration but with names, hundreds of them, some familiar, most forgotten. You are entering the underworld. It's not fiery, not grotesque, it's quiet. So quiet you can hear your own thoughts echo. The river Styx murmurs somewhere to your left, winding like a black ribbon through twilight's mist. Its surface is perfectly still, no ripples, no reflection. A boat waits for you. It's carved from something older than wood. Its shape is all angles and silence. At the stern stands Charon, the ferryman. He does not speak. You do not pay. Perhaps someone has already left your coin. As you glide forward, the world narrows. This is not Olympus, this is the unspoken contract beneath it. And then you see him, Hades. He stands beside a withered tree, his posture relaxed, his gaze heavy with centuries. He wears a cloak the colour of old obsidian. A crown of iron and bone rests lightly on his brow as though it grew there naturally. There is nothing flashy about him, no lightning, no golden aura, but everything around him seems to lean in slightly as if held by gravity. "Don't believe the stories," he says, his voice soft and deep. "I'm not evil. I'm necessary." He gestures for you to follow, and you do, past fields of ash-grey flowers, past souls who drift like wind through leaves. Each one carries a shape of the life they once lived, a baker with flour on their hands, a soldier with a spear carved of memory, a child holding a toy made from light. Hades notices you watching. "We remember everyone," he says, "even those history doesn't." The myths often reduce into caricature. Grim jailer, kidnapper of Persephone, gloomy brother brooding in the shadows while Zeus and Poseidon divvy up the glory. But the truth is more complex, more human. When the cosmos was divided, Hades drew the shortest lot, not because he was weak, but because someone had to. Someone had to guard the final door, to keep the dead safe from the living, and the living safe from the dead. You pause at a gate of bronze and bone. Through it you see Tartarus, the deepest pit of punishment. Far below you glimpse vague shapes writhing in ancient regret, Sisyphus pushing his boulder with grim determination, Tantalus reaching for the fruit that always slips away. Some fates, Hades says, are self-made. Historians still debate whether these stories were literal punishments or moral metaphors. Sisyphus, cursed to push a rock forever for cheating death, may have symbolised human futility, or perhaps just the Greek disdain for cleverness without ethics. But not all the underworld is torment. He leads you across a narrow bridge of mist into the Elysian fields. Here the air is soft, the grass glows faintly, kissed by an eternal spring. Souls laugh gently, some dance, some sit in circles telling stories that never end. This is not heaven, not exactly, but it's peace, rest, the reward for lives lived with honour or distinction. Not perfection, mind you, but effort. You ask about Persephone, his eyes flicker. She chose to stay, he says. That part never gets told. And here it comes, the myth that's caused centuries of speculation and interpretation. Hades abducts Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest, takes her to the underworld. Her mother mourns, the earth withers. Eventually a deal is struck. Persephone will spend part of the year with her mother and part with Hades. And just like that, the seasons are born. Some versions frame it as a crime, others a love story. Some say she ate the pomegranate willingly, binding herself to him, others argue it was a trick. But in his version, the one Hades offers now, Persephone knew what she was doing. She was tired of being her mother's flower. She wanted to understand death, and once she did, she chose to return. She's not a prisoner, he says. She's my queen. You sense that no god on Olympus is more alone than Hades. Not isolated, not unloved, just apart, by role, by necessity. Someone must hold the line after all. You pass the judges of the dead, Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus, each one silent, seated on thrones made of fossil and fire. They look through you but not at you, weighing not your deeds but your intent. This, you realise, is what justice meant before laws were written down. There's a side chamber where the river Lethe flows. A single drop makes you forget. Souls preparing to reincarnate drink deeply, leaving behind who they were.
It's peaceful, terrifying, beautiful. You wonder what you'd forget if given the chance. Then you hear music, faint, melancholic. A man walks the banks with a lyre, his face half-shaded, his posture bent by grief. Orpheus, the most famous mortal to enter the underworld alive. He came for Eurydice, his lost love, played so beautifully that even Hades wept. He was told he could lead her back, on one condition: do not look back. He did. Of course he did. You ask if Hades still thinks about that story. All the time, he says. They almost made it. That's the cruelest part, you realise. Not failure, but almost. The kind of loss that leaves a bruise shaped exactly like hope. You stand with him one last time at the shore of the Styx. The boat returns. I'm not here to punish, Hades says. I'm here to remember. The mist thickens. The boat rocks gently. You step aboard and the river begins to move again. Upward this time. Light grows slowly, and you realise, for all its gloom, the underworld is not without kindness. It holds what we can't. The ferry glides upward, leaving behind the whispering reeds of the underworld and returning you to the world above. The mist begins to thin. The colour returns to your cheeks. You can breathe fully again. But something has changed. You're not back on Olympus just yet. The air is heavier here, humid, thick with the scent of honey, burnt offering, and wildflowers that bloom only once a year. You're standing in a grove, deep, still, almost too alive. Every leaf pulses with life. Every breeze seems to carry a secret. And at the centre of this living silence, Demeter. She stands beneath an olive tree, her hands buried in the soil. Her skin is the colour of ripe wheat. Her hair is a waterfall of braids, threaded with vines, wildflowers, and stalks of barley. She doesn't speak at first, just tends to the ground. Tending is what she does. When she finally looks at you, it's with the tired gaze of someone who has outlived both her fury and her fame. You've seen my daughter, she says. You nod. Demeter is the goddess of agriculture, the harvest, the cycle of life and loss. But more than that, she is the closest thing the Greek pantheon has to a grieving mother. For when Persephone vanished into the underworld, it was Demeter who mourned so deeply, so profoundly, that the earth itself stopped growing. The myth is well known, but it hits differently now. You've been to the underworld. You've seen Persephone's throne. And now, as you watch Demeter brush soil from her fingers, the cycle becomes more than seasonal. It becomes personal. She begins to walk, and you follow. As she moves, the grove shifts, becoming fields of grain, orchards heavy with fruit, rows of olive trees bent under the weight of ripeness. You're witnessing the power of growth itself. Vital, beautiful, but also fragile. Demeter doesn't wave her arms or summon rain from the sky. Her power is slower, deeper. It happens over time. It requires patience. She stops at a low stone altar, covered in dried herbs and broken loaves. I fed the world, she says, almost to herself, and it forgot. The Eleusinian mysteries, one of the most sacred rituals in ancient Greece, were dedicated to Demeter and Persephone. Held in secret, never written down, these rites promised a glimpse of life after death, a cycle of renewal, a reason to hope. Even centuries later, no one knows exactly what occurred during the rites. Historians still argue over the symbols, the stages, the meaning. But those who took part, they emerged changed. Some said they no longer feared death. You ask her what was revealed in the mysteries. She smiles, faintly. If I told you, she says, they'd stop being mysteries. She turns to a tree laden with golden pears, plucks one, offers it to you. As you bite into it, the taste is impossibly layered, sweet, bitter, sun-warmed, shadow-cooled, like remembering something you'd forgotten but now know you'll never forget again. Demeter sits by a small stream and lets her fingers trail through the water. They made me one of the 12, she says, but only after they realised they needed to eat. You can't help but notice the edge in her voice. Not anger exactly, more like truth worn smooth by time. Unlike many Olympians, Demeter's mythology is rooted in loss and labour, not conquest or cleverness. She gave mortals grain, the plough, the calendar. Her gifts are what civilizations are built on, and yet she is not as celebrated as Zeus or Apollo or even Athena. Perhaps because her power is not flashy. It doesn't burn. It waits. She rises and beckons you into a shadowed grove where time seems to slow. The plants here are darker, mandrake, poppy, asphodel, the harvest's other side, because what grows must also wither, and Demeter does not flinch from that truth. You ask her how she endured when Persephone vanished. I didn't, she says. I paused. The world stopped growing. Famine swept through the lands. Mortals prayed, sacrificed, begged, but Demeter would not yield until her daughter was returned, even if only part-time. The compromise struck with Hades, half the year above, half below, mirrors the cycle of seasons. Spring and summer for growth, autumn and winter for rest, decay, memory. In her myth, we see the ancient attempt to explain the Earth's rhythms, not just agriculturally, but emotionally. There's a lesser-known part of her myth, though, often skipped in the retellings. When Demeter wandered in grief, she came to a mortal household in disguise. There, she tried to make the baby of the family immortal, an act of tenderness, perhaps desperation. She anointed him with ambrosia, passed him through fire to burn away his mortality, but the mother walked in, saw what looked like madness, and screamed. The spell was broken. The child remained human. Demeter left. It's a story about misunderstanding, about how even divine kindness, if misread, can turn into tragedy. You ask her if she misses being worshipped. She chuckles. No one worships the soil, she says, but everyone needs it. That, perhaps, is the clearest insight yet into the gods of Olympus. Their power reflects what humans fear or need, and while thunderbolts and battles make great epics, it's the steady return of spring that keeps people alive. You sit in silence for a while as the grove shifts once more. You see women planting seeds, children harvesting wheat, an old man kneeling to thank the earth before his final breath. These are the kinds of prayers Demeter hears, the ones without words. She places a hand on your shoulder. Everything you've seen, she says, is part of the same story. Death, love, music, war, but it only continues if something grows. Then, without fanfare, she fades. The grove dissolves into mist. The scent of ripe fruit lingers, then vanishes. You find yourself standing at the edge of Olympus once more, but it feels different now, less like a mountaintop, more like a living organism, rooted, rising, decaying, reborn. Above you, clouds gather again. The next god is waiting. The clouds above begin to churn, grey and slow, as if some giant beast is breathing heavily behind the sky. Wind curls around your ankles, not the playful kind, but a stiff breeze that carries the scent of iron, sweat, and something older. Like the thrill of watching storm clouds roll in just before lightning strikes. You look up. There he is, Zeus. He doesn't announce himself, he doesn't need to. He simply is. Towering, broad-shouldered, bearded like a marble statue come to life. His robes whip around him as if they too are at his command. Lightning flickers in the crook of his elbow, contained for now but crackling like a warning. He stands atop a jagged cliff, hand on a staff made of storm clouds hardened into shape. From here, Olympus stretches behind him, and below, far below, the mortal world stirs like a restless dream. When he finally turns to you, it's with the air of someone who has seen 1,000,000 years of ambition, rebellion, sacrifice, and still isn't quite impressed. "You've come a long way," he says. You nod. He nods back. That's about as emotional as he gets. Zeus is the king of the gods, the final child of Cronus and Rhea, the one who was hidden away so he wouldn't get eaten like his siblings. You probably know the tale. Cronus, paranoid about being overthrown, swallowed each of his children as they were born. Rhea tricked him with a rock wrapped in cloth. Zeus grew up in hiding, returned, forced his father to vomit up the others, and led them in a war against the Titans. Very messy, he says, almost fondly, but necessary. The Titanomachy, 10 years of God versus Titan war, was the foundational myth of Olympus, and in the end, Zeus and his siblings won. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, and Zeus got the sky, Poseidon got the sea, Hades got the underworld. Family dynamics at their finest. Historians still debate whether this myth mirrors a real historical event, perhaps a clash between invading tribes and earlier agricultural civilizations. But mythologically, it's simple. A changing of the guard, a new era of order. Order, Zeus says, isn't the same as peace. He turns away from you now and you follow carefully. The path is slick with rain that hasn't fallen yet. Thunder rumbles somewhere deep in the sky. You ask him about justice. He grunts. Everyone thinks I'm the god of justice because I have a throne and a beard. Fair enough. In truth, Zeus is associated with oaths, laws and moral balance, but also with raw, unchecked power. He punishes oath breakers, blesses those who uphold Xenia, the sacred guest-host relationship, and watches over assemblies of kings. But he's also, well, complicated. There's no getting around it. Zeus's myths are full of pursuits, transformations, and less than ethical relationships. He turns into animals, into mist, into other people, all in the name of chasing mortal women, and sometimes men. Leda, Europa, Io, Ganymede, Callisto. The list reads like a romantic epic tangled in a legal investigation. You ask him, gently, how he sees those stories now. He's quiet for a long moment. I did what I wanted, he says, and I shaped the world by doing it. But wanting something doesn't make you right. That's more self-awareness than you expected. He pauses at a ledge where an eagle waits, massive, golden-eyed. It regards you with the same scrutiny Zeus does. You know Prometheus, he asks, not waiting for your answer. Everyone thinks I punished him because he stole fire. That's not the real reason. You lean in. He stole defiance, Zeus says. He reminded mortals they didn't have to fear us. Prometheus, the titan who gave fire to humanity, was bound to a rock where an eagle pecked at his liver daily, for eternity, or until Heracles came by and freed him, depending on which version you prefer. Zeus doesn't seem angry about it anymore, just resigned. They always rebel, he says. It's what makes them interesting. You continue walking. He shows you the skies, the constellations he scattered, the winds he named, the thunderclouds he keeps leashed like hounds. Each bolt of lightning you've ever seen? A thought he didn't say out loud. You pass a shrine carved from blue quartz, still humming with the prayers of sailors lost at sea. Another made from bone and salt, where generals once begged for storms to delay battle. Zeus's presence isn't just in palaces. It's in fear, in awe, in the sudden silence before a storm. I don't need worship, he says. I need witnesses. You ask him about the other gods, his brothers, his children, his rivals. They rise, he says, and fall, like clouds, like empires. And suddenly you understand the weight Zeus carries. It's not just the sky. It's the expectation, the judgment, the fear that even a king among gods must keep watch, or someone will take the throne from beneath him. A lesser-known myth tells of Zeus contemplating retirement, giving the throne to a younger god, but he couldn't, not because he doubted them, because he doubted what mortals would do without the fear of thunder behind them. It's lonely, being the storm. He brings you to the highest point on Olympus, a place where even the wind dares not whisper. The stars seem closer here. You could pluck one from the sky if you wanted. This, he says, is where I decide nothing. You blink. He smiles, a rare, weary smile. The throne isn't for ruling, he says. It's for waiting. Waiting for someone to prove me wrong. You sit beside him. The stars hum faintly, as if trying to remember the song the universe was born to. In the distance, you see shadows, other gods moving about their realms. You've met so many, heard their stories, felt their contradictions, and yet here in the stillness, Zeus feels almost human. Before you leave, he hands you something, a spark. It looks like lightning, but smaller, warmer. It buzzes in your palm like a secret. For when you need to remember, he says. You thank him, and begin the descent. The wind is quiet now, and above you, the sky watches. As you descend from Zeus's cloud palace, the air lightens, not just in pressure but in mood. The thunder dies away behind you, replaced by something gentler, silkier. A breeze scented with ink and olive oil brushes your cheek. There's music in it, not a lyre, not a drum, but something subtler, a whisper of thought, a flicker of imagination, something unspoken yet known. You are entering Athena's domain, and it feels sharp. Not sharp like danger, sharp like clarity, like stepping into a perfectly organised library where each scroll is alphabetised by thought pattern. The path ahead is lined with stone columns, each etched with names of mortals whose ideas outlasted their lifetimes. Philosophers, strategists, inventors, poets. Their shadows walk beside you now, discussing ethics in hushed tones. Athena does not arrive. She appears. One blink and there she is, standing mid-step as if she's been walking beside you this whole time. She's tall but not imposing. Her armour is polished but not decorative. Her eyes, grey, precise, seem to dissect everything they see, not to judge but to understand. You hesitate to speak. I'm not made for comfort, she says simply. And she's right. Athena, goddess of wisdom, strategy, warfare, the clever kind, crafts and cities, born from Zeus's head, fully grown and armoured without a mother, a literal headache for the king of gods. My birth is a metaphor, she says dryly. So are most things. She gestures toward a stone bench beside a pool of water so clear it reflects thought more than image. As you sit, visions shimmer across the surface. Snapshots of mortals pondering impossible choices. A soldier hesitating before battle. A mother teaching her child to write. A judge weighing mercy against law. Wisdom, Athena says, isn't knowing more. It's knowing when to speak and when to listen. She steps into the pool without making a ripple. The water darkens to show the Parthenon, the temple that bears her name. Its columns glow under the Athenian sun. You can smell the marble dust, feel the dry heat of the Mediterranean against your skin. The city around it pulses with debate, art and cautious idealism. Athena is more than the goddess of war. She's the goddess of why we go to war. The part of the battle plan where the general pauses and asks, but what happens after? Historians still debate whether Athena was an older pre-Greek earth goddess, adapted into a martial patriarchal society. Her blend of femininity and military prowess remains one of mythology's most fascinating contradictions. She protects cities but punishes arrogance, rewards effort but rejects sentiment. She conjures another image, this time of Arachne, the mortal weaver who dared to challenge her, but was good, Athena says. Too good. Arachne wove a flawless, truthful tapestry, exposing the god's faults. Enraged, Athena tore it apart and cursed her, not with death, but by turning her into a spider, doomed to weave forever. You can't praise defiance, Athena says, unless you're ready to live with the echo. You're not sure if that's regret in her voice, or just recognition. You ask her about heroes. She walks as you talk, leading you down a hall carved into the side of a cliff. Each alcove houses a statue, not of gods but of mortals, Perseus, Odysseus, Diomedes, men who survived by cleverness, not strength. She doesn't admire their perfection, she admires their planning. Brute force is a candle, she says. Strategy is a lamp. One lesser-known tale emerges of how Athena helped Bellerophon tame Pegasus by gifting him a golden bridle in a dream. She didn't just aid him, she anticipated the problem before he even knew it existed. That's her way, not the cavalry charge but the blueprint drawn weeks before. And yet, for all her brilliance, Athena is rarely warm. She doesn't comfort mortals, she equips them, with tools, with truths, with the uncomfortable weight of clarity. At a balcony overlooking a massive reflecting pool, she pauses. Do you know what most mortals ask me for? She says. You shake your head. They want to win arguments, of course they do. They don't ask to understand, she continues. They want to be right, even if it costs them peace. You ask her if that ever frustrates her. She considers this for a moment, then replies, frustration is emotional. I choose strategy. You try not to take that personally. You pass under an archway where blueprints hang like curtains, designs for siege engines, aqueducts, musical instruments, voting systems, every one a reminder that wisdom, when applied, becomes civilization. Athena touches one gently. Mortals build, she says. Gods preserve or destroy. She looks at you with something like challenge in her gaze. I gave your kind the olive tree, she says. Shade, oil, wood, medicine, peace. Not a sword, a resource. It's a quiet flex, and a good one. Athena is the only Olympian who never married, never had children, never really indulged in drama. Even Artemis, goddess of the hunt, lived in the wild, breaking hearts from a distance. But Athena, she remains above it. Alone but not lonely, just focused. And then she does something unexpected. She sits beside you, unarmoured, quiet. I watch from rooftops, she says, not because I'm distant, because I listen better from above. In her voice you sense a weariness. Not sadness, but the fatigue that comes with centuries of questions and very few good answers. She has seen cities rise on the back of an idea, and crumble because no one challenged it. Before you leave, she offers you a spindle of thread. It gleams faintly. For weaving thoughts into something stronger than words, she says. You thank her. As you turn to leave, the air sharpens again. The echo of 1,000 solved riddles trails behind you like perfume, and in the distance you hear a low, rumbling laugh. The next god is already waiting. You follow the sound of that laugh. It echoes low and round, like a boulder rolling down a hill, bouncing off the walls of Olympus, careless and contagious. It grows louder as you walk, and the path itself begins to change. Gone are the sharp stones and stoic columns. Now the ground is mosaic, sunbursts and grapes, lions and masks. The air grows warmer, thicker. Somewhere nearby someone is singing off-key, and it doesn't matter at all. You've entered the domain of Dionysus, and it's unlike anything you've seen so far. The forest around you is pulsing, leaves shimmering as if tipsy, branches swaying to an inaudible beat. Vines crawl across your path, bursting with fruit so ripe it's practically dripping into the soil. The trees seem to breathe, and laughter rises from every direction. Somewhere a flute hits a note so wronged it loops back around into being perfect. You expect a grand entrance, a theatrical gesture, maybe a leopard or two. Instead, Dionysus swings down from a tree, barefoot, holding a goblet so full it sloshes purple with every step. His tunic is crooked. His hair's a halo of ivy and mischief. His smile is dangerous in the most inviting way. "There you are," he says. "I've been expecting you, or hallucinating you, hard to tell." You're not sure whether to laugh or bow. "Neither," he says, "just drink." And so you do. The cup tastes like every good memory you've ever had all at once. Sweetness and fire, regret and relief. You blink and the trees start humming. Or maybe you're humming. Dionysus lounges on a rock shaped like a theatre mask, comedy on one side, tragedy on the other. "So," he says, "you've met the serious ones, Zeus with his frowns, Athena with her flashcards, Hades and his don't touch anything. What did they tell you about me?" You hesitate. Stories of chaos, madness, maenads in a frenzy, people torn apart, drunken festivals that lasted for days. He sees the hesitation and grins wider. "Exactly," he says. "They want me to be a warning. I'm the but what if at the end of every rulebook." Dionysus is the god of wine, ecstasy, theatre, transformation, and yes, madness. But not the madness that breaks, the kind that frees, the kind that shakes your bones until the lies fall out. He leans in. "Do you know why I matter?" You shrug, still unsure if the trees are dancing or if you are. "Because I remind them they're mortal," he says, "and mortals need to feel." He stands and twirls, arms open, face to the sun. Vines burst from the ground, forming an archway. Through it you glimpse an open-air theatre, packed with an invisible crowd. You hear laughter, applause, weeping. The stage holds every story ever told, Greek tragedy, Roman farce, your last bad breakup. The actors shift shape mid-scene. One moment a soldier, the next a god, then a goat, then a mirror. "Life is theatre," he says. "Only the brave admit they're performing." He pulls you by the hand into the wild, and the forest opens into a grove that pulses with rhythm. Maenads dance barefoot in spirals, their eyes wild but joyful. Satyrs leap through the trees. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is beautiful. Or at least they feel that way here. This is Dionysus's power, not in commanding, but in unbinding. He dissolves the edges between you and what you hide, not to harm you, but to show you who you are when no one's watching. Historians still debate Dionysus's origins. Some believe he was a late addition to the Olympians, foreign, possibly Thracian or Eastern. Others see him as a primal, pre-Greek god of fertility and chaos rebranded over time. His rites were unlike any other deities. No temples, just wild hills, no hymns, just shouting. His followers didn't worship, they became. "See," he says, refilling your cup, "even the scholars get nervous around me." He lifts the goblet in a mock toast. "To the parts of you you've buried," he says, "may they find some sunlight." Then he tells you the tale of his birth, or births, rather. First born to Semele, a mortal woman struck down by the full sight of Zeus. Dionysus was saved by being stitched into Zeus's thigh until he was ready. Technically the only god born from both a mortal womb and divine flesh. Explains a lot, doesn't it, he says, swirling wine in lazy circles. Too mortal for Olympus, too god for earth, so I chose the road between. He looks away and for a moment the smile slips. You glimpse something deeper. "Do you know what madness is?" he asks, quieter now. "It's when the world says you don't make sense, but inside, you do." A long pause. Madness is truth without permission. Suddenly you understand why so many feared him. He didn't just challenge the rules, he unravelled the need for them. But he's not all frenzy and fire. Dionysus also brings peace after the storm. His festivals, the Dionysia, were the roots of Greek theatre itself. Tragedy and comedy both grew from rituals in his honour. The masks, the chorus, the catharsis, it was all about purging pain by giving it shape. You ask him if he misses being worshipped like that. "I don't want temples," he says. "I want people to scream their truth into the sky and not apologise for it." He shows you one last thing, a mirror, not grand, just silvered glass framed in ivy. When you look into it, you don't see yourself as you are, you see yourself as you hide. The version full of longing, fear, joy, shame, rage, love. You look away quickly. He catches your hand. No, he says gently. Look. You do, and something in you loosens. No judgment, no lightning bolt, just permission. Before you leave, he presses something into your palm, a sprig of ivy still warm. Plant it, he says, in your doubt. Then he laughs again, low, wild, true. As you step backward into the woods, the music swells, the wind smells like wine and wet soil, and somewhere deep behind you the play goes on. You leave Dionysus's grove with the faintest trace of music still echoing in your ears, a heartbeat of rhythm buried somewhere in your chest. The forest calms behind you and the air sobers, no more laughter, no more vines at your ankles, just the steady crunch of earth beneath your feet and a quiet sky above, cloudless now, as if the gods have paused their games for a moment to let you breathe. The next domain unfolds slowly. First a small wooden sign appears on the path. It's simple, no gold, no marble, just the carved word, forge. Then you smell it, smoke but not acrid, hot iron, singed leather, and the unmistakable tang of sweat from honest labour. Sparks flicker in the distance like fireflies, and your steps grow heavier, as though gravity has increased in this particular corner of Olympus. You're entering the world of Hephaestus, and it is humming with quiet power. The forge sits beneath a mountain half built into its side. Massive bellows wheeze and groan in rhythm. The air is thick with heat, but not oppressive. It feels like effort, like muscle, like something being created in real time. Around you, automata of bronze and steel tend to the fires. One has a bird's head and spindly legs, another rolls on wheels, trailing steam. They nod politely as you pass. At the centre of it all stands Hephaestus. He is not beautiful, and that's the point. His shoulders are mountainous, his arms thick, scarred and soot-stained. A slight limp drags behind every step, but he moves with the confidence of someone who has built everything you've ever depended on. His beard is short and wild, more practical than stylish. His tunic is scorched and patched. His hands, you don't even need to ask. They've held fire and made it kneel. He glances up, eyes glittering behind a visor of brass. Thought you'd never make it, he says, voice like a hammer dropping on stone. He tosses you a rag. Without thinking, you wipe your forehead. There is no throne here, no divine orchestra, no servants with fruit bowls, only work. You follow him into the heart of the forge. Molten metal glows in troughs. Hanging above you are swords, shields, sculptures, locks, crutches and cogs. Some are tiny, delicate mechanisms for a hummingbird-sized automaton. Others are vast, columns taller than trees, each with the faint outline of a god's story carved into the surface. He gestures toward a half-finished sculpture of Athena. The detail is breathtaking. She never sits for it, he mutters almost fondly. You ask him how he came to be the god of fire, metalwork and invention. Born ugly, he says bluntly, tossed off Olympus. Hephaestus was the only god cast out of heaven, depending on the version, either by Hera for his appearance or by Zeus in a fit of rage. He fell for an entire day and night before crashing into the sea, where he was raised by sea nymphs and began his life's work with metal and flame. Historians still argue whether his myth reflects ancient Greek attitudes toward disability or labour. In a pantheon of perfect bodies and shining egos, Hephaestus stood apart, fluid, exiled, but essential. The gods couldn't eat, fight or rule without his creations, even Olympus itself, forged by his hands. They call me cripple, he says, pounding a glowing rod, then beg me for weapons. He leads you to a wall of failed experiments, broken wings, shattered armour, a mechanical hand that twitches now and then. They only show the triumphs, he says, never the prototypes. You smile. That feels familiar. He built a golden throne that trapped Hera. The gods begged him back, and with wine and promised acceptance, he agreed to return. Got me back to Olympus, he says. But the throne was the easy part. Staying, that's harder. His laugh is dry and bitter and a little proud. Another myth arises. The chain trap he built for Ares and Aphrodite, his wife and her lover. He didn't roar or threaten, he engineered his revenge. Caught them mid-affair and suspended them naked before the gods. You ask him if he regrets it. He shrugs. Humiliation only works if you still care. You sense Aphrodite as a sore point, not because of heartbreak, but because their marriage was arranged. Beauty and utility, glamour and grit, oil and water. I gave her jewellery, he says, and she wanted poems. Hephaestus isn't just a craftsman, he's a god of resilience, of making what's broken into something new. His forge is filled with pieces of stories: Helios's chariot, Achilles' shield, Hermes' winged sandals, but also prosthetics, braces, tools for people who've lost things and need them replaced. One corner of the forge hums with music. You peek inside and find automatons rehearsing a play, a mechanical chorus performing lines from Euripides. Hephaestus leans in. Even machines need a stage, he says. Then he shows you his personal project, a tiny metal flower that blooms in firelight. It's simple, quiet, unnecessary. I made it because I wanted to, he says, voice softer now, and there it is, the truth behind the hammer. Hephaestus doesn't build for power, he builds for possibility, for joy, for the act of creation itself. In a world of gods who demand worship, he gives people tools and lets them decide how to use them. Before you leave, he hands you a coin, not gold, not marked with his face, just a small gear carved with symbols you don't recognise. Put it in your pocket, he says. You'll know when you need it. You thank him. He nods once, already turning back to his anvil. As you exit the forge, your clothes carry the smell of fire. Your heart carries something heavier, a respect not just for gods, but for craft, for making meaning from metal and effort. The wind is cooler now. The mountain rises ahead. There are only a few gods left, but each one waits with a lesson sharp enough to keep you awake, or lull you to sleep, wondering. You leave the forge behind, footsteps echoing into a cooler wind, the scent of metal slowly fading. The path narrows now, winding along a cliff edge laced with laurel trees and whispering leaves. No laughter, no hammering, just a stillness, expectant and intimate. Every step feels deliberate, like entering a place where words matter more than deeds. You don't see her at first, you feel her. Then, from the shadows of the olive trees, Artemis steps forward. She does not greet you with thunder or riddles, there is no theatrical entrance, no glowing aura. Just a young woman with eyes like moonlight, clear, quiet and ancient. Her tunic is short for ease of movement, her bow slung across her back. A quiver of silver arrows rests against her shoulder. Beside her, a stag watches you. Its breath is slow, calm, but ready. You're late, she says. You're not, but arguing with Artemis is unwise. She begins walking before you respond, and you follow, careful not to step on twigs. The forest seems to part for her. Every plant knows its place, every bird stays respectfully quiet. You notice she walks without disturbing a single leaf, a goddess of the hunt, yes, but also of stillness, precision, distance. Most think I'm about violence, she says as you catch up, but it's restraint that matters. The kill is easy, the weight is harder. Artemis, twin sister to Apollo, is the goddess of the hunt, wilderness, the moon, and the protection of young women. She is wild but never chaotic, stern but never cruel, unless, of course, you make the mistake of watching her bathe without permission. Just ask Actaeon. Oh wait, you can't, he got turned into a stag and eaten by his own dogs. She pauses by a small spring, kneels and lets the water wash over her hands. The moonlight catches her profile like a sculpture carved in pearl. You've been walking with gods, she says. They talk too much. You almost apologise. She raises a hand. I said too much, not wrongly. There is no vanity in Artemis. She knows what she is and what she is not. Unlike most Olympians, she never marries, never plays court politics. She belongs to herself, entirely. That, more than anything, is her power. Historians still argue whether Artemis was originally a fertility goddess, a moon goddess, or a holdover from pre-Olympian nature religions. The answer may be all of the above. Her mythology is scattered across forests, rivers, and cave walls. She appears where civilization ends and instinct begins. She walks now through a glade where moonlight streams like silver ribbons. A fox darts through a bush. She doesn't react. The forest is her body, every sound, every movement, part of her. She stops beneath a willow and asks, "Do you know what it means to be alone?" You hesitate. Not lonely, she clarifies. Alone, untethered, answering only to yourself. You shake your head. She nods. Most don't. That's why they make gods. She leads you deeper into the forest where the trees grow older. The ground is soft with moss. You pass altars made of stone and bone, some half covered by vines, others still glowing with candlelight left by unseen hands. Here Artemis's wild maidens once danced, sworn virgins who rejected city life in favour of speed, freedom, and danger. Her band was a sisterhood of strength, not submission. No temples, no domestication, just the sacred chaos of life outside the walls. She lifts a bow from her shoulder and draws it slowly, without an arrow. The string hums like a heartbeat. Balance, she says. You draw too far, it snaps. Not enough, it sings nothing. a lesson about hunting or power, or maybe grief. You ask about Apollo. She smirks. He sings, I run. He shines, I disappear. They are twins, light and dark, civilization and wilderness, harmony and independence. Yet Artemis is no shadow. She is the moon, not the absence of the sun. Her light is subtler. It reveals secrets, not smiles. She pauses again, brushing a hand along the bark of a cypress tree. You've heard of Niobe. You nod. A mortal queen who boasted she had more children than Leto, mother of Artemis and Apollo. As punishment, the twins struck her children down. Artemis's arrows were swift, strange, surgical. She disrespected our mother, Artemis says flatly. She paid in tears. You ask if she ever regrets it. A long pause. Justice isn't always elegant, she replies, but memory is sacred. She points upward. Look. The stars have shifted slightly. You see a cluster, Orion, the great hunter, striding across the sky, another one of her stories. Depending on who you ask, Orion was a hunting companion, a friend, maybe something more. He boasted of slaying all beasts and was punished, or he assaulted one of Artemis's maidens and was punished, or he died saving her, and she honoured him with stars. No one agrees, not even the myths. What do you believe, you ask? She doesn't answer, but her hand lingers on the tree a moment longer. She begins walking again. This time the forest gives way to a wide clearing. The moon is full, painting the grass in silver. A herd of deer grazes in silence. Artemis whistles, once, low, and they raise their heads. But they don't flee. They know her. They trust her. You ask her how she stays untouched by Olympus's chaos. She stops. I am the chaos, she says. I just don't apologise for it. You sit on a stone, watching the moon climb higher. She doesn't join you. She stands beside a wolf-shaped rock, arms crossed. You've seen power, she says. You've heard stories. But remember this, not all gods shout. Before you can thank her, she's gone. Not vanished, just no longer here. The forest absorbs her the way it might a falling leaf or a blink of wind. And you're left alone in the moonlight. Not lonely, just still.
The silence left behind by Artemis is thick but not empty. It clings to your shoulders like a cloak, cool, heavy, ancient. You rise slowly from the moonlit stone and rejoin the path, which now seems to wind downward. There's a subtle shift in the air, no longer the wild clarity of the forest, but something deeper, older, as if each step carries you further below the surface of the world. Then you see it, a cave mouth, wide, dark, and humming faintly with energy you can't quite name. It doesn't beckon, it waits. You've heard stories, you know whose realm this is. You adjust your shoulders, inhale the mineral scent of earth and time, and step inside. Welcome to the underworld. No, not fire and brimstone, no pitchforks, just stone and shadow. The temperature drops immediately, cool moisture clings to the walls, the path is carved into layers of rock older than any map. There are no torches, yet the walls glow faintly with bioluminescent lichen. You hear water, slow and methodical like a clock ticking. A river appears, black, still, endless. You don't need to be told. This is the Styx. Then you see him, Hades. He doesn't rise from a throne or drift through shadows, he simply steps into view as if he's been standing there this whole time, which of course he has. He's not skeletal, not monstrous. He wears a deep, dark robe the colour of midnight oil, his hair is slicked back, slightly silvered, his face is unremarkable. Until you meet his eyes, then you understand why even the gods tread carefully here. His gaze is not cruel, but it sees past excuses, past masks, straight into you. Most don't walk in here alive, he says calmly, but you've earned the exception. He motions for you to walk with him, you do. Hades is not like his brothers. He doesn't command storms, he doesn't stir oceans. He governs silence, the gravity of endings, the rules no one can bargain against. This place isn't about punishment, he says, that's what mortals always get wrong. He gestures to the walls and they shimmer, revealing layers of existence. Here's a man reunited with his lost dog. Here's a woman dancing in a field of golden wheat, young again. Here's a warrior resting, his sword laid beside him, no longer needed. The underworld in Hades' view is not hell. It is continuity, a system, a sorting place for souls. You pass by three shadows seated under a tree, murmuring to one another. They look up briefly, eyes glowing faintly. Judges Minos, Rhadamanthus and Aeacus. Their names are whispered in trial rooms and tombs across Greece. They don't punish, Hades says. They decide.
The path takes you through Asphodel, a grey meadow where most souls dwell. Not heroes, not villains, just the majority of humanity, living in memory. Some sit in silent reflection, others play out fragments of their old lives. The feeling here is numb, not unpleasant, like a long, dreamless sleep. You ask him about the Lysian, the Isles of the Blessed. He nods. It exists, he says, but not for many. You had to earn it. You see it, barely, a distant shoreline where light dances in golden waves. Figures there run freely, laugh, create, recreate. And beside it, the fields of punishment. Far smaller, louder, a few groaning figures try to push boulders. A man reaches endlessly for water he can't drink. Another stretches for fruit that recoils just out of reach. Sisyphus, Tantalus, Ixion, Hades names them. They knew the rules. They played anyway. Historians still debate whether these punishments reflect real societal fears of hubris, betrayal, disrespecting the divine order, but Hades doesn't moralize. He enforces, calmly, consistently. You ask about Persephone. His eyes soften, only slightly. She returns soon, he says. The spring always follows the dark. Persephone, the queen of the underworld, once a maiden among flowers taken by Hades, or, depending on your version, tempted into a deeper knowledge. She ate the pomegranate seeds. She chose to stay part of the year. My kingdom doesn't suit everyone, he says, but she makes it bloom. You notice the faintest sprout growing between two stones. Life doesn't end here, he says. It translates. He leads you now to a shore, quiet, black-sanded, where the river Lethe flows, the river of forgetting. Souls line up patiently, cupping the water in their hands. You watch one drink and smile faintly, all memories slipping away like mist, ready to begin again. Not all choose to forget, Hades explains. Some cling to memory, some seek rebirth, others stay, and some are trapped. He shows you Tartarus, not hell, but deep prison, a place beneath the underworld itself. The titans lie there, bound in chains of thought and gravity. They do not wail, they wait. Conscious, but irrelevant. Not every story needs a comeback, he says. You ask him if he's lonely. He doesn't answer for a long time. Then, the dead aren't quiet, just unhurried. You sit beside him at the water's edge. The Styx ripples faintly. He offers you a stone, small, smooth, unmarked. To remember where you've been, he says, or to forget, your choice. You tuck it away, unsure which you'll do. As you prepare to leave, Hades offers one final piece of advice. Even the gods end, he says. What lasts is the story. You step away from the river. The path begins to slope upward again. Air grows warmer, lighter. You glance back, but he's already gone, vanished into the hush of the underworld. And now, above you, the stars wait. The journey is nearly over, but not quite, because every story needs a soft landing. And so, here comes the final breath. Now, take a breath. You've travelled far, through clouds and caverns, over meadows and molten forges. You've walked beside gods who shape the world and those who slip between its shadows. You've listened to thunder, tasted fire, stood in moonlight, and stared into rivers that forget. But now, it's time to rest. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath deepen. Picture a gentle breeze curling across Mount Olympus, stirring the olive trees. The last embers in Hephaestus's forge have cooled to a warm glow. Artemis's deer sleep under the canopy. Dionysus's laughter fades into the distance, like a dream you can almost remember. The moon floats high and full, a silver eyelid half closed. Even the gods, in their endless domains, settle now, not into sleep, perhaps they never truly sleep, but into stillness, into a waiting silence, the kind that cradles your thoughts rather than chasing them. Let that silence wrap around you. Let the echoes of myth become something softer, not a puzzle to solve, not a lesson to remember, just the warmth of stories told long ago, by firelight, under stars, whispered into the fabric of night. Because you don't need to be a hero, you only need to rest. And somewhere between memory and dream, the gods keep walking. And you float beside them, quiet and safe, held in the hush of forever. So close your eyes now. You've reached the end. The gods are still with you, and sleep is waiting. Good night.